The comic book of the Black Panther Party tells the story of the black struggle in history and the formation, growth, and death of the Black Panther Party. The first chapter of the comic book tells the story of the black struggle, talking about the early use of African slaves in European colonies in 1525. The comic book talks about the struggle of black people during the Civil War, the Great Migration, life in America with racial violence and lynchings, etc. The discrimination and racial violence black people experienced in the early 20th century gave rise to civil rights movements that sought political equality for black Americans. The comic book also briefly describes the hardships black soldiers faced after coming back to America after fighting in World War II, as they returned to a country that was still not equal, and they were not given equal access to the GI Bill as white soldiers were. We also talked about this in class, and the unequal access to benefits from the GI Bill between black and white soldiers returning from war. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was created in 1966 by Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton. Seeing the inequalities and discrimination black Americans were facing, Newton and Seale published the 10-point program of What We Want and What We Believe, which was the guiding document for the Black Panther Party. It demanded action and change to benefit and help black people. Robert James Hutton was the first member that was recruited by the Black Panther Party, and he was just 16 years old. Seale and Huey appointed him as the treasurer, even though they didn't have many money yet. The party quickly grew and gained national attention for their defiance against the police. 1967 was when the Black Panther Party had their first encounter with the law. A police officer tried to bait them and unlawfully question them, but the Panthers knew their rights and defied them. No one was injured or killed, and not a single shot was fired, but this is when the war between the Black Panthers and the law was officially declared. The Black Panthers also served in the black community to keep the community safe and protected, doing things like serving as crossing guards for the children before and after school until the city placed a traffic light. The 6 original members of the Black Panther Party are Elbert Howard, Reginald Forte, Huey P. Newton, Sherwin Forte, also known as Sherman, Bobby Hutton, and Bobby Seale. Eldridge Cleaver joined the Black Panther Party after witnessing Newton stand up to police after he was protecting a woman named Betty Shabazz on February 12, 1967. Politicians quickly began to see the Black Panther Party as a threat, and Bill AB 1591 was introduced into the legislature on April 5, 1967, attempting to make carrying loaded firearms in public illegal. It would completely disarm the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party marched on the California State Capitol in Sacramento to oppose this bill, known as the Sacramento Incident, and this act helped to gain national attention and recruit black people nationwide. Following the incident, though, arrests among Black Panther members started and became the beginning of a never-ending cycle of Panthers going to jail. Huey was convicted of voluntary manslaughter of a police officer on September 8, 1968, and the Free Huey movement began, helping to shed even more of a spotlight on the Black Panther Party, gaining them even more support. Bunchy Carter was a major influence for the growth of the Black Panther Party as well, as he brought connections of gang affiliations to the party. As the party grew larger and stronger, members dedicated all of their time and energy to the party, dropping out of school, quitting jobs, etc. Joan Tarika Lewis became the first woman to join the Black Panther Party and became an important part of the black movement joining the struggle for freedom and equality. Here's where the problem of intersectionality comes to light for the party's history, a topic that we also discussed through the course material. On page 94 of the comic book it says, "The role of women in the Black Panthers was not always one of full acceptance or equality, especially not in the beginning. Early on, female members of the party were referred to as Pantherettes, treated as an affiliate organization, and subjected to harassment." Page 94 also says, "For many women in the Black Panthers, the fight was not just for black liberation, but for women's liberation as well." For women in the Black Panther Party, the fight was not the same, and their gender and race intersected, creating a difference in their experience within the party and with the power dynamics within the party. As the Black Panther Party continued to grow, the party also inspired other groups, both globally and domestically, to fight oppression. Hutton was shot and killed by police officers on April 6, 1968, and it was a rallying point for the party as he was the first member of the party to be killed by law enforcement. A major influence of the Black Panther Party on black communities were the community-based survival programs they created to create a meaningful and immediate relationship between the Panthers and the community. The Free Breakfast for School Children program was a major aspect of the party that helped this connection. Between 1968 and 1969, the program fed more than 20,000 children, and the program took this as an opportunity to educate the young people during breakfast time on Black history. The Black Panther Party also established their first liberation school on June 25, 1969, serving as an alternative to public schools to educate in general education, Black history, and social welfare services for children and families. Another major survival program launched by the Black Panthers was in 1971 as they began testing for sickle cell anemia, which was a major issue for Black people in the United States, but was not on the forefront in the medical world. The Black Panther Party always encompassed members with differing opinions, but as time went on, those differences became more and more apparent and threatened the party. In 1982, the Black Panther Party officially died. As of 2020, there are still Black Panther members who are incarcerated. On August 22, 1989, Newton was shot in the head by a drug dealer. As since his release from prison, he became paranoid, violent, and involved with hard substances like crack and cocaine. In class, we discussed the concept of intersectionality throughout the semester, especially in the context of how it impacts Black women. Intersectionality is not about identity or understanding who we are, it's about explaining the complex power inequalities and issues of oppression. The term intersectionality was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989, and she coined the theory and the term to help us recognize and realize the forces such as race, class, gender, sexuality, ability, and religion are systems of power that intersect to create complex inequalities and oppressions. The women in the Black Panther Party were not initially accepted with open arms. They were early on referred to as the Pantherettes, like I said before, and treated as an affiliate organization. They were subject to harassment within the party, and for the women in the Black Panther Party, they were fighting not only for Black liberation, but for women liberation as well. It was an intersection of race and gender. In class, we discussed the 7-strategy model for transformational change, and those include base building, disruptive movements, narrative shift, electoral change, inside-outside campaign, momentum model, and collective care. While the Black Panther Party effectively used every single one of these strategies, I would argue that their most effective and their most influential strategy was collective care and the relationship that they built with the community around them. Through the survival programs enacted, such as the free breakfast program and the education systems, they built meaningful relationships with the community and supplied them with what they needed. Collective care is caring for each other in a strategic way, not just for survival. When an organization prioritizes collective care, they enable people to take risks, pool resources, stick with the movement for long term, and build the capacity to organize. Collective care is such a powerful tool for community despair, and the survival programs the Black Panthers built had a huge impact on the community. Toward the end of the semester, we have been talking much about the discrimination and violence the Black community faces with police and law enforcement. From the reading, we learned that the 18th century amendment for the right to bear arms exclusively excluded Black people and has been used against Black people in history. Through the last part of the course, we have learned of all of the innocent Black people who have been murdered by the law enforcement simply for being Black, and that we learned that in the modern world, Black Americans are killed by police at 3 times the rate of white Americans. The Black Panthers used the Second Amendment to their advantage, militarized their people, and they were not afraid to know their rights and stand up for those rights, and they used their weapons if necessary. They challenged law enforcement by exercising their legal right to bear arms and strategically used their rights to their advantage. They educated the Black community of their rights, monitored police activity, stepped in to help with legal cases of violence against the Black community, and showed the world that they were not afraid to stand up to police violence.